Hey guys, hello everyone. Good evening. Good evening to all. Yes, Mayank, this session is beginner friendly, and if you don't know the basics of Excel and Power BI, so you can also go to our playlist. Check our channel, and you can find the Excel and Power BI basic bootcamp. Okay. Hi Bharat, guys. Am I audible and visible to you all? Can you let me know in the chat, please? Hello. I'm not audible to you all clearly on about. Please. Hello. Yes. Okay. 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 Thank you, guys. Okay. Thank you, guys, for the confirmation. So my name is Anam Khan from Let's Upgrade, and I'm here just to let you all know about the attendance procedure and how you will get your certificate. So yes, there is a certificate for this workshop, and it is free. Not no. Is my voice is low? All clear. Abhi, Abhay, just check the volume level from your laptop or mobile phone once, please. Okay, so guys, today we are starting with the advanced data analysis workshop using Excel and Power BI. And if you are new, you don't know the basics of Excel and Power BI. We yesterday only we had finished the Power BI workshop. You can check our playlist or go to our channel. You can find the playlist and get to know about the Power BI. And also, there in this month only we had covered the Excel bootcamp, so you can go through it. Okay, and but you can attend this workshop as well, so you will have the practice, and after the session you can do the practice of excellent Power BI as well. Okay, so hi Indian, um, I want certificate. For the certificate, you need to attend the workshop first, or day one and day two, and then only you will be getting your certificate. The duration of this workshop is 2 hours for each day, and 2 days workshop only it is. So the timing will be same, 6 to 8 p.m. I hope you all join on day two as well. And I can see very less people have joined. Please call your friends, family members, colleagues, cousins who want to upgrade their skill. So it will really help them. Okay, guys. Yes, you can attach the certificate in your resume as well. It will help. So I will explain you all about the certificate part. Just let me share my screen first to explain you all about the attendance part. Then we will move ahead. Okay, guys, let me know till then from where you people are joining, from which place you are joining. Okay, is my screen is visible to you all? Please, can you all let me know in the chat again? Yes or no? Nagaland, Hyderabad, okay. Pune, good to see. Karnataka, where Sambhajinagar is located. Praveen, this is a free workshop. No fees is there. Okay. Nepal, Delhi, Tamil Nadu. Okay. Indore. Yes, this is day one. Aman, this is day one, and day two will be tomorrow. Okay. Okay, guys, so let's move ahead for the attendance part. Now, focus here in the screen. So here in the description box, you can see registration, attendance, LU coin, certificate. We have this one link. We call it as a one link as everything is placed at one place. So when you click here, another page will open where you need to first enroll for the bootcamp, of course. Then only you will be able to mark your attendance. So it's taking a little bit time. Yeah, so yeah, so guys, when you scroll down here below the day one title, here you can see mark attendance toggle. Click on it. A rating scale will open from 1 to 10. You can rate the session according to yourself. I will suggest that please put your attendance after the session, so you will be able to put the honest rating and give the honest feedback here, and it will really help us also to like work on it and improve whatever things are there from our side. So for now, I will put 10 on 10 and click on this feedback, nothing, then mark my attendance. So when we mark our attendance, this progress bar will increase day by day as you mark your attendance. So as it is a 2 day boot camp, so today it is 50% and tomorrow it will be 100%. So after when you mark your attendance, okay. So, and about the certificate, please make it clear that after the session, after tomorrow's session, when the session will get end, then only the certificate will get unlocked, and then only you can download it. So the certificate will get unlocked after the session, after tomorrow's session, basically. Okay, so do not spam in the chat again and again for the certificate part. Please, guys, it is free, nothing you have to pay. Just mark your attendance of today's and tomorrow, and you can unlock a certificate on day 2 when the session will get end. So that was it about the attendance and certificate part. This we have communities, WhatsApp and Discord. You can join us there to get regular updates, daily invites, program reminders, session reminders, and also you can connect with Let's Upgrade team or your friends. If you have any doubt, you can clear it out there and ask help from your friends as well. Okay, so please make sure that you can join our communities. And we have the student ambassador program, which is a free 1 month program, nothing you have to pay. This program is that you will be the ambassador for Let's Upgrade for the next 1 month. That is, the new batch is starting from 1st of June. So you will be the ambassador for Let's Upgrade for the next June batch. Okay, you can apply for it by clicking on this apply now button. And these are the prizes that we give away. Like this depend on the target that you achieve. This is the gold, silver and bronze swag. So there are certain target that you need to achieve to unlock this swag, and these are the prizes that we give away. You can check out our page more to know more about this program. And if you want to apply, you can click on this apply now button and fill out the form. Okay, our team will get back to you by the first June. Okay, I hope this is clear. And one more thing, guys, we have this all-in-one documentation. The link is also already been pinned in the chat. You can check out, and this is the documentation for as everything is placed again at one place. You can find the attendance links, session links, and also if you are new to Excel and Power BI and you want to learn, so you can check out our playlist link here and go through the sessions. You can watch our sessions, the recordings, and then when you go down, this is the syllabus that we are going to cover in the next 2 days. You can go through it and get to know what are the topics we are going to learn, you are going to learn. Okay, so that's it. And if sir shares any of the resources, any PPT link, file links, data set, anything, we will upload all the resources here in this page itself. So please do not spam in the chat again and again for the data sets and files, everything. You can come to this document and get those links. Okay, I hope this is clear from my end. And if anything is there, if you guys have any doubt, you can ask us in the chat, please. Till then, I will call the trainer, that is Avesh sir, who will be there with you for the next 2 days, and he will be teaching you the Power BI. Okay, sorry, data analysis. Okay, I'm sorry. 1 second, guys. Yeah. So let me call the sir. Hi,
Hi, good
sir.
evening, Anam. Hi, good evening, everyone.
So, sir, you can start with the session. I think they are
Great.
all clear about the attendance and certificate part, and I will hand over the
Hi, good
session to
evening,
you and
Anam.
take your
Hi,
lead.
good evening, everyone. Okay, sure. Thank you, Anam, for
Thank you,
this
sir.
guideline. Yeah, as usual, you've been a great help. Okay, so before I begin, my name is Professor Avesh Bornia, and I am basically a trainer and a corporate expert with respect to analytics. I do work on tools like Excel, Power BI, Tableau, SQL, R, and Python. So these are some of the major areas that we actually work with, and I do a lot of consultation as well. So it's always great to interact with people across India and across the world. I think there are a few people who are international participants as well. So I welcome all of you. This entire session and tomorrow's session will be in English, considering the fact that we have a few South Indian speakers as well. So maybe if I mix Hindi, probably it will be a little difficult for them. So great. I'm assuming everything's very clear in terms of how things are to be done with respect to um, the attendance part, your certificate, etc. So I'm assuming that there will be no spamming with respect to that particular area. I expect that all of you do ensure that you do not spam all that. Okay, so great. And at the outset, I would like to thank Let's Upgrade for conducting these kind of programs and inviting me over as an expert to interact with freshers and students across the entire country. So today's session, okay, I have doubt regarding the session. Okay, what is the doubt? We've not even started, Uday. But anyways, what doubt do you have? So your voice is echo, so we can hear your voice twice. Okay, okay, hold on. I've completed yesterday's Power BI. Is anyone else hearing the echo, or is it only one individual who's hearing an echo? Okay, there is an echo. Okay, 1 minute. Hold on. Has the echo reduced now? Okay, the echo has reduced. Okay, great. No, I think I'm actually monitoring the session from some other platform. That's the reason. Okay, great. Thank you, Anam. She's also pinged me on the backend. Okay, thanks a lot. So I think now we can work with it. So I'm getting a few questions about paid version of Excel and stuff. Please don't worry. As long as you have a normal Excel setup, you can directly work with it. Or for that matter, even you can go online and learn and work with it online. So to begin with, I've already beforehand shared the entire data set that I am going to be working with in today's session with Anam, and she will share that with you. So I will be using the same data set for tomorrow as well, because I'll be showing you how to work with the same data set in tomorrow's session using Power BI, and then I'll show you how to work with it in Excel today. Okay, so very quickly, let's start. I will share my screen right now. Okay. So my screen is visible to all of you, and I'm clearly audible, and the video is also good enough. I can just confirm that. Can everyone just confirm it? I hope there's no lag or anything of that sort. Great. Okay. So this is a data set called as printer sales data. Now, this is a dummy data set which contains information of a company. So I'll give you a background of this particular organization, and then we'll start analyzing the data. Okay. So this is a data set that is a dummy data set that is there for a company that sells printers. Now, with respect to this data set, we've got three different tables, or you can say three different sheets of data. The first sheet is the sheet that contains all the invoice data. Okay, you can call it as the invoices sheet or invoices table. The second information, or the second piece of information that is important, is customers. Okay, and then the third piece of information that's important is the products. Now, as an analyst, you have been given the task to gain insights from this data. Now, what happens is a lot of times certain products are offered as free products by the company. There are certain products that have been returned. For example, there is a problem or there's a defect with the product, or maybe the customer ordered a wrong product. So you have to perform some kind of an analysis and understand how much of the products were free products, what were the return products, what is the percentage of return products when compared to the overall percentage, etc. So what we really need to understand in this case is how do we go about with this kind of analysis, and what is the method that we need to apply for this particular analysis, right? So the first and foremost thing that you need to understand is you need to understand that whenever you're dealing with data, data is predominantly broken up mostly into two types of data. Okay, one is data that is based on the detail. Okay, I have already discussed this in the boot camp which we just completed yesterday, but I'm just doing it once again for people who have not attended that boot camp. And the second is the type of data that you deal with. Okay, now in terms of the detail of data, when you have more detail and when you have less detail. So when you have more detail in your data, you are basically in a more clear picture to understand, okay, what data is there. So detail is also termed as granularity. Now, when you say more detail, we are basically talking about data wherein you have, like, for example, in our data set, we have data at the transactional level. So when you have more detail, it's called transactional data, or it's called detailed data, or it is called as unpivoted data. Basically, data which is not yet pivoted or summarized. And finally, this is also called as granular data. On the other hand, when you say you have less detail, you have detail which is at the report level. That means you are basically having summarized data. Or you can call this as consolidated data. Or you can call it as pivoted data. Or you can call it as aggregated data. So ideally, data is referred to as either granular or aggregated. And for granular data, you can use interchangeable terms like these. And for aggregated data, you can use interchangeable terms that are these. Now, when you say the different types of data, it's mostly qualitative data and quantitative data. Now, when you say qualitative data is mostly non-numerical. Okay. In fact, most of the times it's non-numerical. But if it is numerical in nature, if it is aggregated, that means if you can take a total of it and it makes sense, then it is termed as quantitative data. If it is not aggregated, or it cannot be aggregated, or when you aggregate it, it doesn't make sense, it is qualitative. For example, roll number, or maybe Aadhaar card number, or numbers which don't really make sense and they are just there for the namesake or for identification purpose. That is when you talk about qualitative data. Now, in your data set, you need to identify what kind of data are we actually dealing with, right? So here, when we talk about the data, we need to identify, okay, for example, we need to see that document type. Now, obviously, this is non-numerical, it's text, so it has to be qualitative in nature. But document number will be treated as qualitative or quantitative. Yes, everyone, give me the answer in the chat box, everyone, please. Yes, Afza, you can add the project if you are able to do it by yourself and take a snapshot of it and add it to your resume, or you can add it to your LinkedIn profile. Okay, Nikhilesh, you're saying it's quantitative. Okay. Okay, now when you say quantitative, why quantitative? It's not quantitative, it is qualitative. See, remember, when I take a total of the document number column, it's not going to make sense, right? Because document number just identifies the document for you. So as I mentioned, if there's any, like even for that matter, customer account number, this is also qualitative in nature. Because even though it's numerical in nature, it is just there to identify the customer by the number. That's it. Like it's your roll number, your registration number, etc. Now, how do we go about with the entire process of working with this data? Now, this again, if you look at this data, when you talk about granular or aggregated, this is granular data, because for every single day, you have information of the transactions conducted, right? So we have about 500 odd transactions that have been done in this invoices table. Now, using this data, it's a 2-day program, Hazik. Ankit, please do not spam. I'm kind of finding it difficult to understand what other people are writing. So kindly refrain from spamming the chat. Okay, you've given whatever you wanted to write. You mentioned it once, so please do not spam the chat. Thank you. Okay, great. So when you look at the document number, the date, etc., you can easily identify that these fields are broken down into qualitative and quantitative data. Now, let me tell you, in Excel is not smart enough to understand the difference. Okay. Ankit, I think you're being a little, like not very clear. So I'm not going to be very clear. I'm not really understanding what you're trying to say here in the chat. Okay, so we are basically talking about how do we approach this entire problem. So as I mentioned, you've got three different sheets: invoices, products, and customers. Now on this tasks sheet, what I have actually done is I have given you a guideline in terms of how do we go about with understanding what we need to do. So basically, we have the document type, which indicates what kind of document is there. So for example, here, if you click this drop down, you can see we've got invoice and return. Okay. So every documentation is basically classified as either an invoice or a return. Now, if you look at 22, row number 22 and 23, these both have been returned. For example, serial cable and power cord. These were two products that were ordered by Johnson Auto Group. Okay. Now, before I move ahead, let me tell you that this company is a B2B company. They are basically selling directly to the businesses. Hence, they are into B2B sales data, right? So we need to identify a few things, as in who are the top three customers, what are the top 2 to 3 selling products, etc. So we need to do a lot of top analysis. We need to do a lot of other analysis at the end of this particular session. So how do we actually go about with the process? Now, in order to do that, there are a few important formulas that we will need to use of Excel. So I'm assuming that you have some bare minimum knowledge of what formulas in Excel are and what are the functions that we use. So just to give you a quick understanding, when you talk about functions, so functions are nothing but predefined formulas. Okay. And these functions, these predefined formulas take up certain inputs and they return the output for you, right? So the input could be numbers, etc., or certain arguments, and they return a value, which could be a single value or it could be values. Now here we will be dealing with those functions that return only a single value for us for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be utilizing the if function, then the IFS function or the nested if function, etc., and then we will be solving this entire case study. So the first thing we need to do is we need to first understand whether the product sold is a return or it is a invoice. So if it is an invoice, we leave the unit price as it is, because that will be considered as part of the revenue. So this will be considered as part of the revenue. But if it was a product that was ordered wrong, that means this product has been returned back to us. And once the product is returned back to the business, this amount that is there cannot be credited as a revenue amount. So this will be returned. Now, since this is returned, this has to become a -25 and a -20. And that is something we need to handle accordingly. So what we will be doing is we will be utilizing the if function. Okay. We will be using the if function, and that if function is going to check the document type. Okay. If the document type is a return, then what will happen to your unit price is your unit price will turn negative. So this is the first thing that we need to achieve as an analyst, right? Now, please note that whenever you start your analysis needs to start by first understanding the case. So I've given you a good understanding of the case, but when you're actually left alone, like to fend for yourself, I just give you the data set and you have to start off. Your starting point will always be understanding what kind of data we are dealing with, whether it is granular or whether it is aggregated, whether it is quantitative or qualitative, and what should be your approach to handling the data. So here what we do is we go ahead and we create a new column. I'm going to call this as new unit price. Okay. Now, once I call this as new unit price, I'm going to use a function called as the if function. Now, remember, as I told you, the functions are predefined formulas. They know exactly what they're supposed to do and they will give you the result accordingly. So I start off by using the if function equal to if, and then I hit the tab key. Now, please note, whenever you start working with a function and when you hit the tab key, you are actually invoking the function. That means you're getting ready to use the function. You're loading your gun and then you're ready to fire. So basically, when you hit the tab key, you've said, okay, now I want to use my function and start working with it. The moment you hit the tab key, your function gets invoked, and you now have a on-screen tooltip that basically tells you what should be done with your data or with your function. So in this function, there are multiple arguments that you have to provide. Every function you will have to provide multiple arguments. Now the arguments could be as simple as selecting a range of cells and taking the total of it, or it could be as complicated as providing a particular cell value and then checking what that value is, whether it matches something, and then returning a value. So in this case, I'm using the if function, and because I'm using the if function, the task or the job of the if function is to perform a conditional check. Okay, it's basically to perform a conditional check, right? Now in order to provide the conditional check, what we actually do is we go ahead and we use the Shift F3 shortcut. So I'm putting it on the screen. Shift plus F3. So when you press Shift and F3 together, it opens up the function arguments dialog box. I just press Shift F3. And because I'm creating my if function for the first time, I'm doing it this way, right? Now in this case, you can see that your logical test is in bold and the other two are in not in bold. So that means that the logical test argument is a compulsory argument. So whenever you see it's bold, it is compulsory, and if it is not bold, it is not compulsory, or it is optional. On the other hand, when you actually look at your formula in the formula bar, okay, and you see the on-screen tooltip, if your argument is in a square bracket, it is optional. If it's not in any square bracket, it is compulsory. Okay. So my logical test here requires me to check the document type. So I'm just putting it on the screen. So basically what you will need to do is you will need to check whether the document type is equal to, and in double quotes, you will check whether it is either return or it is invoice. So you can either write return or you can write invoice. Now that doesn't really make a lot of difference, because according to what you've written here, the next part of the formula, that is your value if true and value if false, that is going to be dependent on what you write here. So if you're writing return as your document type, your value if true is going to be -1, or you can just say minus and then you select the unit price cell. Okay, so you're basically converting your value from positive to negative. Yeah, there is another way to invoke the formula bar, that is by clicking on the FX button here, Afza. So if you click on the FX button here, you will be able to see the function arguments dialog box. Just try that out for yourself. Okay. Anyways, now my logical test. So let me give you a quick update on the logical test. So basically you have your operators. I'm just putting them down on the screen very quickly, and then I'll explain what each of them is for. This is for less than, this is greater than, this is less than equal to. Normally in school we were taught like this. Then this is greater than and equal to. In school we were taught to write greater than and equal to like this. So in maths it's a different thing, but here it's a different thing. Then this is equal to, and finally this is your not equal to. Normally in school we would write not equal to like this. Now please note, not equal to is written in different ways in different programming languages. Like in case of Excel or VBA, you write not equal to like this. Even for that matter, in PowerBI and DAX, you write it like this. Okay. Now let's move ahead and go and complete this. So I start off by selecting the cell. So I scroll to the left and I'll select the invoice cell, basically the document type columns first cell. Now the moment I select it, normally in Excel, what happens is when I select a cell, it picks up the reference of the cell. So for example, here it is supposed to pick up A2, but it's not picking up A2. It's picking up @document type. Now please note, this @document type is being picked up because of something called as the table format. Now I won't get into the details of what the table format is because we don't really have a lot of time to discuss that. But table format is a different way of writing or working with your data in Excel, unlike the other format, which is called as the range format. So you have range format versus the table format. Okay. Now you could choose any one of them, but I normally prefer keeping all my data in a table format. You'll understand very soon why. Okay. Now when I write or when I select the cell, it says @document type. Basically, it indicates that from the document type column, we are picking up the current cell. Okay, but that's for the current row. That's why the @ basically refers to current record or current row. Now the next is value if true. Now please note what I need to do in terms of value if true is I have to first provide a condition or a logical test. So the logical test is I'm going to check whether my document type is equal to, and then in double quotes I will write invoice and close the double quotes. Now what this indicates is that I have to check every single cell for every row, whether, I mean, the formula will check for every single cell in every row, and it will see whether the document type is an invoice or whether it is a anything other than the invoice. So basically this means it will check if it is other than invoice. Now value if true will be a negative or positive of the unit price. So because I'm using equal to invoice, I will select this and say that whether it is true, if it is equal to invoice, it should show up as unit price itself. If there is anything other than invoice written in the cell, okay, then you will say you want a negative of the unit price. I'm just putting a simple negative sign and selecting the unit price cell. Now currently it says 18 as the output because this row is a invoice. Now when I hit enter, look at what happens. The moment you hit enter, every single cell gets updated with the formula, unlike what happens in a range format. Now, because my data is in a table format, it has automatically updated the entire data for you, right? Anyways, now moving ahead, what we can do is I want to apply this same cell formatting to this entire column. So I can select this cell here, and then I can click on the format painter in the clipboard, and then I can go and manually just select the entire data just like that and click on or release the left click. Once you've done that, your formatting is now applied and working with the entire stuff, right? Now, once you've done this, the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and we need to check for the other tasks. So the next task that is there is to understand whether the data is a premium product value, whether it is basic, whether it is free, or whether it is return. Now, in this case, the moment I convert my values into negative, I end up with 4 types of data. The first is data which is greater than $100. Second is data which is less than or equal to $100. Third is data which is greater than 0. Okay, or the sorry, third is exactly equal to 0. Exactly equal to 0, and the fourth is less than 0. Now these 4 situations give us 4 important categories of products. This is a product which is going to be treated as a premium product. Now why do we need this data? Because when we actually go ahead and try to analyze it, we need to know how much premium product are we selling, what is the revenue coming in because of premium product sales, etc. Which are the areas or which are the states which have got more premium product sales, etc. All that we need to understand. Anything which is less than or equal to 100, that means if it is greater than 0 but less than 100 or equal to 100, it will be treated as a normal sale. So I just write sale here, okay, or sale, and this will be treated as when you're offering it for free, it's going to be of no charge, so free. Okay, like for example, these free products could actually be accessories that would be along with the product sold. And finally, anything which is less than 0 will be treated as a return product, something which is not acceptable by the customer for whatever reasons. Maybe the product was wrong ordered, or whether it was defective, or whatever. We are not really talking about it for now, but yes, we need to understand why are the products being returned and what is the major reasons why we are seeing a lot of return products. Now what we do is we write another function, or we use another function called as the IFS function. Okay. Yes, the recording is going to be available. Thanks for the update. Okay. So we have premium, basic, free, and return that we are going to be looking at. Okay. Now, what we do is we go ahead and look at the next column that is called as value column. We're just creating a value column, and this column is going to check for the value of each of these cells one by one and check it multiple times. So there will be something called as a sequential check. That means I'll first check whether this is less than 0, then I'll check whether it is equal to 0, then I will check whether it is less than 100, and finally the other one. So I'll start off with the IFS function. Now remember, IFS is a new function in 2019, but now I think we're in 2024. So by now you should all be having it. If you do not have the IFS function, you will then have to use the nested if scenario. So I will show you how to work with the IFS function. So equal to IFS and hit the tab key to invoke it. Now when you do this, you need to provide the logical test and value if true. Now, just like the example that I showed you before this, where I used the function arguments dialog box, I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to go ahead and start building my formula from scratch. Okay. Now I'll start off by selecting the new unit price, and then I will check whether it is less than 0 or no. What happens if it is less than 0? So I have to put a comma, and I have to now specify what is the value if it is true. That means if it is less than 0, what should be returned as the output? So we'll just write return over here. Now you can close your bracket, and then I can just put a comma for now and show you. After this, I will just write in double quotes other. Now please note, when I'm using these double quotes are used in situations whenever you need to work with strings. But when I hit enter, okay, sorry. Oh, okay. So I'm using IFS, so I have to provide the other arguments. I cannot leave it with just one. I just forgot it's the IFS function. So again, I will check whether the new unit price is equal to 0. Okay, so I'll write this formula here. So if it is equal to 0, then I put a comma here and I say in double quotes free. What does this free indicate? That the product was offered completely for free because it was a product that come along with the main product. Okay, like for example, like the cable, the printer cable, etc., that could be treated as free products. Then I put a comma again. Now I'm writing my formula in the formula bar. That's why I have to specify commas to separate the main arguments of the function. So the next thing that I'm going to write is I'm going to check again if my new unit price is less than 100. Then you put a comma and you specify what should be the output. So if it is less than 100, it should be treated as a normal sale. And finally, you put a comma and then you select the cell again. And this time around, you say if it is greater than or equal to 100, then what should be returned? Premium. Close the double quotes and press enter. Now what this does is it creates a value column wherein you can see that, okay, these are sale values. This is a premium transaction. This is a premium transaction. These are free transactions, and these are return transactions. So you can clearly see every single condition is now fulfilled properly in the IFS function. Okay. Can you see that? So I think Lakshmi Rani, you will have to check the old videos that we have on Let's Upgrade and connect back to the team. They will get back to you on that. Okay. Now what we do is we go ahead, and the next task is to understand what is the profit. Now, obviously, to get the profit, we need to first get the cost and we need to get the revenue. So revenue is possible because we have unit price and quantity. So based on the quantity and the unit price columns, I can create the revenue, but I cannot create the cost because I don't have the unit cost available. So I will simply use the quantity multiplied by the unit price and I will get the revenue. Okay, but without the cost, I cannot find out the profit. Now the question is, do we have anything related to the cost available in the table? No, we do not have anything available in this table for now. So that means we hit a dead end. We don't know what to do. But when we actually look at the other two tables, we do have some information available on the products table that can help us. And that is the product cost column. So now, since you've got the column, you can just go ahead and plug in the values. But the challenge here lies in the problem where I have to go and look out. Like, for example, I have to look at my invoices table and I can see, okay, there is a part number C5101. So I go to my products table and I look out for C5101, and then I look out in the last column saying 4.58. So I go back to my invoices table and then I create a column here in between the two of them, and I create the column name and call it as product cost. And I write whatever the value of 5101 here is, that is 4.58. And then I write the value 4.58 and press enter. Now this is to be done for the entire 500 sales records or sales transactions, you can say. Now obviously this is not going to be possible to complete, right? What you can you also show formula for Excel which doesn't have IFS function? Sort of, I will do one thing. Let me just try and finish this off. If I do have time at the end of the session, I will show you how to work with nested if in place of IFS function. Okay, I hope that helps you. Okay, so I cannot afford to do this for 500 records. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to be struggling with it. I can't do it. So what I do is I try to do some very useful tricks, and I try to see using an automatic technique that, okay, I go from the invoices table to the products table and I try to find out what is the product cost using something called as a VLOOKUP function. Okay, now what this VLOOKUP function does is it looks up the value of the part number in the products table and looks up for whatever column number you're looking for. Okay, so this is supposed to be done automatically. Now let's understand the VLOOKUP function and let's understand what is the important arguments in the VLOOKUP function. So in VLOOKUP, what you need is you have to provide, sorry, that was a little too long for lookup. Okay, in VLOOKUP, you have to provide four arguments. The first argument is lookup value. Now this is basically your clue. Based on this clue, you have to go ahead and find out a particular other column data. For example, I have got the roll number, okay, and I have to find out what is the specialization of the student. So maybe if you're doing an MBA, maybe marketing, finance, etc., whatever. So to use this roll number and then approach or reach out to the column data that we are actually looking for is the use of the VLOOKUP function. Okay, so my lookup value becomes the clue, and then I have the table array. Now the question is, where do I have to find this data? Where do I have to find the the data from the roll number to the maybe location or whatever specialization? So that is the table array. Now I could have a table which could contain of multiple columns, and then from there I would have roll number as the first column. Now this is a very important step. First column, that means your roll number should be in the first column specifically. Okay, and then basis that, let's say I've got some other information available. Let's say I've got name and then I've got specialization, but this specialization is not available in the actual data or the transactional data that we are working with. So what we do in this case is we use the table array, the entire data for this, and then we specify the third argument, which is column index number. Now the question is, what do we have to find out? So basically from the roll number, I have to find out the specialization. So I have to specify which column, from which column do I have to get the data. So when I say I want it from the specialization column, I cannot write the keyword specialization there. So the question is, I have to write a number. Now this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So using the roll number, which is in the leftmost column, I have to find out the specialization. Okay, so that is my column index number, which will be 3. And for table array, I will be selecting the entire student table. Okay. And then I will be able to reach out to the thing. Now the last argument is range lookup. For the range lookup, I can either use 0 or I can use 1. Remember, 0 is for an exact match. Okay. On the other hand, 1 is for an approximate match, which a lot of people do not use very frequently. They mostly rely on the exact match itself. So this is the range lookup. Now you can either use 1 or you can either use 0. And the meaning of it is given exact match and approximate match. Now the question is, instead of 0, you can also write false, or instead of 1, you can also write true. Now this true or false basically indicates that there is a binary, or you can say, sorry, not binary, but a Boolean value involved. That means if it's true, this should happen. If it's false, this should happen. Okay, so it's, if I'm looking for a false scenario, then I have to find exact match over here. And if I'm looking at the other calculation, then I have to find the next one. Just 1 minute. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you how this is to be done using the exact match. So I have to find the exact product cost, because on the product sheet I've got part number, description, product line, and product cost. So I have to go ahead and find that product cost using the VLOOKUP function, right? So let me do that and let me show you how it works. So I go to the invoices table, and in the product cost I write equal to VLOOKUP, hit the tab key. Now once I hit the tab key, the next thing is I'm going to go ahead and provide the arguments for the data. So I can use Shift F3 again because this is the first time. So you can see in this case, there are 3 arguments that are compulsory and there's 1 argument that is an optional argument. Now please note, in optional arguments, there is always a default value. So if your optional argument is there, there is a default value. Now if I do not write anything in this range lookup, by default it will pick it up as 1. Okay, by default it will pick it up as 1, which is nothing but true, and which is your approximate match. So please note, you cannot write the word approximate. You can either write 1 or you can write true. Keep this in mind. Similarly, you can either write 0 or you can write false, but you cannot write exact match. You cannot use the word exact. Exact and approximate just mean these things. So that is the important thing. So let's build the formula very quickly. So my lookup value here is going to be the part number. Now, why do I need the part number? I need the part number because the part number is the first column of your lookup table, or you can say your table array. So when you say your table array or the lookup table, you're basically saying the entire products table. Now, please note that in VLOOKUP, you have to provide the entire table. Okay, there's no like 1 column or 2 columns that you provide. You have to provide the entire table, and that is why having the lookup value in the first column is very important. Okay, now another important thing before I move ahead, remember that your lookup function, okay, your VLOOKUP specifically, works only from left to right, not from right to left. So for example, if I have got the part number, I can find the description of the data, because in my products table I've got part number, description, etc. But if I give you the description number using VLOOKUP, you will not be able to find the part number. So for that, there is a different way of working, that's using XLOOKUP or maybe index match, etc. But I'll stick to my VLOOKUP over here. So my table array is going to be the products table. Now, when I come to the products table and I try to select the data, because I have to select the entire data, okay? Now, a lot of times the data is not very, very small. It's big. Like here, there's only about 49 rows of data. But when the data is pretty big, you just place your cursor on the first cell. Then you use Control Shift right and Control Shift down. Now, when you do that, you will see that ideally in Excel, when you select a range of values, it should pick up, let's say, for example, A1 and then colon, maybe let's say D49. So this indicates that this is a range of data that we've picked up. I'm not working with the range format. Hence, I'm not going to be getting a range over here. So in this case, it says products. Now this products that you see here is actually the name of the table. So if it's not already selected, you can go ahead and select it. And that hash all basically indicates the entire data. Okay. Now, how do we go ahead and look at the column index number? So basically, since I want the product cost happens to be the last column in the products table. So I put the fourth column. So I put a comma. I just put 4 over here. Now, please note when I'm making the formula here in the formula builder, this is called as function arguments dialog box or formula builder, right? When I'm making the formula here, the formula gets updated here as well with the appropriate commas in between your arguments. So my range lookup is going to be 0 or false, whatever you're comfortable with, and then you can click on OK. The moment you click OK, your product cost is going to be generated for you with the product cost and with the quantity and with the unit price and the quantity. You can very easily get into the values for the cost, that's the overall cost of every transaction, the overall revenue, and the profit as well. So let's create 3 new columns over here. So let me just right click and say insert, and let's call these columns as revenue, then the cost and the profit, and hit enter. Now, once you've got this revenue, cost, and profit, once you have it ready, now it's very simple to create the calculation, right? Okay, I can read some comments about people not practicing and stuff. Please ensure that you people practice, and you just go back once you're through with this session and practice. Okay, this is very important. Anyways, my revenue calculation that needs to be done is I start off with an equal to sign, and then I select the quantity because I need to multiply the quantity with some columns data. So I say multiplied by, and then I select the new unit price. Why am I using the new unit price? Because this will tell me exactly when there is a return product, what happens with the return product. Okay, that means the revenue should be reversed because it's a return, right? Now, when I hit enter, you can see very clearly that the revenue is updated, and you can see also that there are certain places where the revenue is going to be a negative revenue. This is because there is a return that is happening for that particular transaction, and you can very clearly make it out from this as well. So you can see so far everything is working perfectly fine. My logic is working absolutely fine for me, right? Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update my entire setup. So for that, what I will do is I will calculate the cost as well. So cost will be equal to the quantity that we have purchased and multiplied by the product cost. So for the product cost, we have actually extracted the product cost data from the table of the products, right? And because we are extracting it, so we've extracted it using the VLOOKUP function. Now you can hit enter. And when you hit enter, every time you hit enter and you complete a formula, you can see that one formula is being applied and all the other cells in that column are getting updated. All this is happening because of the table format. Okay. Now, once I've got the revenue, I've got the cost. So 2 of the main metrics that we need to create are now ready for us. So this is one KPI. This is another KPI that we need to create that are ready. Now, what we do is once we've got the information, we are going to go ahead and update the profit column as well, right? So for the profit column, I say multiply. I will subtract the revenue from the cost from the revenue. So I say revenue minus the cost. And then when I hit enter for the first transaction, you can see that we're making a profit. But then there are certain transactions where there is a loss incurred as well, maybe because this is a return product. Now, ideally, you cannot call this as a loss per se. So in this case, what you actually need to do is whenever there is no revenue generated, you cannot calculate the profit because actually the product has been returned to you. So what we do is we are going to go ahead and whenever there is no revenue, we have to ensure that the profit is not calculated, right? Now, if I want to do that, some values are being shown as NA in the product cost column. Okay. Now, for the product cost column, you shouldn't be getting an NA. The reason is you must have got an NA is maybe your formula you have not put up properly. So just look at the formula carefully. So this is the formula. We look up part number, products, and then comma 4 and 0. Okay. This is the stuff. Now, please note that in this case, when I actually created the formula, I selected the entire products table properly with the headers. So please ensure that you're doing it correctly. Otherwise, it will be a problem for you. Okay. So Saurav, I think the backend team will be taking care of that. So for now, practice and be available in the session. You'll understand it better. Now let's move ahead and move to the next important task in this particular thing, where I will calculate the profit only and only if the revenue is positive, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my cursor before the existing formula and I will start by writing the if function, if, and hit the tab key. Now I'm invoking my function and this time I'm going to check if the revenue is greater than 0, okay, or you can say just greater than 0, then I want to calculate the revenue minus the cost, okay, only then. So you've put a comma and then you've already put your formula, so we leave that as it is intact, okay. Now a lot of times people say that this should be put into a bracket. That's not really required because there's only one operator that's there and we don't want to perform precedence of operators for now. So that's my revenue minus the cost. Now what happens after you've calculated this and you've been able to see that, okay, these are the situations where my profit is not being shown or it's just being 0. So in that case, what we do is we need to now specify that if the revenue is either 0 or less than 0, then the value in the profit should be treated as just 0. And then you can close the bracket and you can press enter. Now, once you've done that, you can see that there are certain places where when the revenue is 0, there is no calculation that's happening. And even situations where the product was returned, in that case also there is no profit being shown in this case, right? So this is how you are going to go about and understand this particular calculation. So far, is everyone clear? Yes, so far is everyone clear? I hope all of you are enjoying the session. I can see we've got close to about 200 people who've connected for this session on data analytics using Excel. Great. Okay. Now what we do is we go ahead and we are going to calculate we've got the value, right? Now we've got the unit cost, we've got the cost, and we've also got the profit calculation. Now the important thing is that we need to start performing our analysis. Now we would start performing the analysis, like for example, I can go to my invoices table and I've got most of the data that I need to work with in terms of the KPIs. So I can understand that, okay, my total revenue, I can find out, total cost, I can find out. So let's start. So because my data is in a table format, you can see that there is a table design tab on the on the ribbon. So go to the table design tab and this is a contextual tab. So when I say this is contextual, please note contextual basically in this means that It is only available when you're clicking within the table, and that's when you see the table design tab. If you do not click within the table, you will not see the table design. I'll show you. So if I click somewhere outside the table, you will see that the table design tab disappears, right? But when I click within the table, it's going to be easily visible to you. Now, how does this actually work with respect to the pivot table? So I go to the table design tab, and then I can use something called as summarize with pivot table. Now, currently your data is granular and detailed or unpivoted in nature. If you want to pivot it, like you want to summarize it, you want to see that, okay, what is the total revenue or what is the total profit? You can easily do that by using the pivot table option. Now you can click on summarize with pivot table, and there it will ask you where do you want to put your pivot table. So by default, it is always on a new worksheet. But you could choose to, if it's a small set of data, you could choose to put it on the same sheet. So you can say existing sheet, and then you can put in the name over here. I'm currently disabling, just changing it to new worksheet. So I'm putting it as new worksheet and click on OK. Now this is where a blank pivot table opens up for you. And this is where you start your analysis from this particular data set. Now, when you change or whenever you set up a pivot table, you can see again there are two tabs available that are there with respect to the pivot table tools that are available. For example, pivot table analyze, you can do a lot of analysis using the pivot table analyze option. So these are the various options available. And then you have got something called as a design tab. So design is more of the aesthetic aspect of the report or the pivot table. This is where you can change the design, you can add, remove subtotals, etc. So I'm just going to get into that in a bit from now. Let me go back to pivot table analyze. And then I have the data, and you can see when I click inside this pivot table area, you can see when I the fields or these buttons are seen, pivot table fields, and the various buttons are being seen, or basically the areas are being seen. Now in this case, please note that in this particular situation, you can start off with any KPI you are interested in. Maybe I'll start off with the profit KPI. So the moment I click on profit, please note when I click on a field, it automatically goes to its respective area. But you can override that. A lot of times people do that because maybe they are kind of missing out something and they would want to fix it back. Remember, Excel does not differentiate between the between the qualitative variables and quantitative variables. So anyways, let's just click on profit. Now, currently, you can see that this is in a dollar format. This is 534,457 as the data that's there in terms of the profit value. Now, what we need to do is we need to further break this down. Now, obviously, to break it down, I need something which can help me to group the data better. So, is there a column that can help you to group the data better? Maybe you can just group it better in such a way that you would want to just, group it by state or maybe by the product line that you've sold, etc. You can also group it by any other field within the data currently. But that's not my objective, because my objective here is basically to perform an analysis on which is the region that's making the maximum money, which is the state that's making the maximum money, which is the free product, like what are the freebies that are handed out to the customers, etc. And finally, you also would want to see a value of product analysis, where you would do again free product analysis, that okay, this is a free product, etc., and so on and so forth. Now in such a case, what we do is we go ahead and we try to understand the region data and the customer type data and products line data. So on the customer sheet, I've got some information of the state, I've got information about the type. Now using this two data, I could classify the data better and I could analyze the data better, right? So let's try and understand this with respect to the data. So please note that on this table, we've got the customers data, where I've got the account number of the customer sitting right up in front of me in the first column, and then followed by the customer name, which is in column 2. And then I have got columns number 3 and 4, which are basically more useful when you're trying to get the value from these columns or the numbers that you need to work. Now, remember, when I am using the word column number or column index number. I'm basically using a numerical field, not a like a random field that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a number. I'm looking for a numerical field. So how do we fix this? Or how do we get the data out of this particular table? Now to get the data out of the table, I go to the invoices sheet and then I add two more columns here after the item number. Now let's just copy the data from here as in just the header, state and type. Okay, and then I'm going to add it to the name here. So state and type, I'll just color these columns maybe to a lighter shade. Okay, let's take okay. Now to get the state and the type of data, okay, I can see Afza, you're saying the sum of the profit column is different from the one shown. Don't worry, there must be some issue with respect to the calculation in terms of the formula. Don't worry about that. As long as you know how to handle it, you can check up your formula later on. I'll show you the formula also later on. Anyways, now to get the state, you can see state is in the customers table and state is at column index number 3 and this is at column index number 4. That means I need to extract data from the third column of the data and data from the third column and the fourth column of the tables. Now, how do we get that sorted? What we do is we go ahead and we try to get the value. So I start off with equal to VLOOKUP. Now, because I'm doing it for the first time again with this particular situation, let's just use the shortcut. So what is the shortcut to get the function arguments dialog box? How do I get the function arguments dialog box? What is the shortcut? So the shortcut here is Shift F3. So when I press Shift F3, I get this particular function arguments dialog box. And this is where we get the calculation done. So lookup value is very simple. It's going to be my customer account number. Why customer account number and not customer name? Anyone? Why are we taking customer account number and not customer name? Yes. So customer account number is the leftmost column in the customer's sheet or the customer's table. Okay. Now comes the important part wherein I try to extract the data. So basically, remember both sheets have some connection. Customer name. Yes, customer number is common. That's the customer account number, but customer name, even if it's not repeated, I will still not take customer name as the lookup value. I will take only customer account. Think and tell me why. Okay. So table array. Now to get the table array, I could go to the tables sheet. The tables sheet, and then I could just pick up the data from there. Okay, and this is going to pick up the entire data. So I can pick up. Now remember, it says customers all. So my column index number in this case is going to be 3 because I want a third column. And then what's my range lookup? I want 0 because in this case, I don't want the data to be picked up based on approximate value. I want the exact value. So then I can press OK and enter. I think. I don't know why this is not working. Just 1 minute. Wait, just hold on. Let me see why this is not working. Oh, okay, I think this column is in a text format. That's why it's not working. Yeah, okay. It was in a text format. Yeah, there was some formatting problem with it. So, anyways, I'll just revert back. Yeah, so you can see that the state is being picked up for the customer. Now we need to get the type of the customer. That means what customer company, or what is the company that the what is the name of the company or the type of the company. So we can use the equal to sign, and this time I'm going to use the VLOOKUP. Now I'll show you another way of using VLOOKUP. So my lookup value in this case is going to remain the same, customer account, and you can see it says @customer account to confirm. The next thing that you can put is you can put a comma, and now you need to specify your table array. Now please note, because we already have, when you select the table, you can see in the table design tab you have a name for that particular table, because this is something that only the it's not like a default format. So I'm starting off with customer account number, and then in this case there's a customers table. So you start writing customers, and the moment you write customers, you can see a small like a table symbol that's being shown. Okay, so I'll press the tab key for customers, then I put a comma, put 4 and comma, and then 0, and close the bracket. So here again it's the same problem. Okay, we are taking a 2-minute break right now, just a 2-minute break. Okay, so just back from the short 1.5 odd minute break that we just took. So here you can see I've got the state and I've got the type of data available, right? So when I actually go to the sheets, okay, over here, that sheet 1 where I actually started creating my pivot table, you can see that I've got the profit, but I want to break it down by the customer state. Now, in order to do that, the first thing I need to do is, because my pivot table is already created, I need to first refresh my pivot table so that any new fields that I'm creating will be available in my pivot table field list. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my invoices sheet and I will add one more column, which is a mandatory column that I need to add, which allows me to understand and break down my data based on the product category or product line. So let me add another column here and let's call this column as product line. So basically the company deals in 3 main product lines. One is a product line that belongs to the product itself. For example, if you see, You've got product, that means the printer itself. Then you've got accessories. Now, along with the printer, maybe you need some accessories like the cable, or maybe the network cable, or the router cable. I mean, the printer USB cable, etc. And on the other hand, the third product line is consumables. Now, when you're using printers, obviously you will need refills like ink. You will need the printing page, etc. So all that comes under a consumables category. Okay. So in this consumables category, we are going to go ahead. Yeah, sorry. I think there was some problem with the network. We are back live now. Okay, so I have now got the data for, I have to now get the data for the product line. Now, to get the data for the product line, okay, I'm going to use the same method, okay. But if you actually go to the products table, you can see there's a name of the product table that's called table design. Under table design, you can see the name of the products table, or the products data is products over here. So every table can be given a name. By default, it will have some table and followed by a number. So we will use this name of the table inside the formula that we are creating on the invoices sheet. So how do we do that? We'll go ahead and in the invoices table, I will say equal to VLOOKUP, hit the tab key. Now my lookup value will be the part number. That's because I'm having part number as the first column. So that's my lookup value, comma. I have to now specify what is my table array. Now I know that my table array is the products table. I have a name for the table. So I start typing products. Similarly, even if you type customers, you will see that products or the customers, whatever you type, is available as a table name. And you can see this small table icon when you start working. So you can see this. So select it and press the tab key to invoke it. Then you put a comma. Now, because you're looking for product line, you need to pick up the third column index number, put 3 over here, and comma, and you're looking for an exact match. So you can either select this and press the tab key, or you could still select 0. You could put 0 here, and then close the bracket and press enter. Now, when you press enter, you can see that your product line is also being generated for you. Can you see it, everyone? So product line is now generated for you. Now, based on this, I can go back to my sheet 1 where I have my pivot table, and I can break down my data. So how do I break down my data? I start by simply clicking on the, uh, I go to the pivot table analyze, and all the new fields that I've created, I want them to be seen here in the pivot table field list. So I'll simply click on refresh over here. When I click refresh, you can see that the new fields are available, like product line. So your product lines field is available, then your state field and the type field is available, right? Now remember, in the bootcamp also on Power BI, I mentioned that when you start with the analytic query, you are starting off with filtering your data, and then you're grouping your data, or you're classifying your data, okay, and you're also summarizing your data. So in this case, you can either start by filtering and then grouping and then summarizing, or start by summarizing, grouping, and then filtering. Now let's do this. So I have already summarized my data. So in terms of profit, you can see that we are making a profit of 534,000 USD, right? Now I want to see out of these 534,000 USD, how much of the revenue or the profit comes from different states in the business or different states. So if I click on the checkbox for state, now please note that profit over here is a numerical field. Now remember, in Excel, as I mentioned before as well, Excel is not intelligent enough to understand the difference between a qualitative field and a quantitative field. It just understands the difference between number and non-number. Keep this thing in mind. Okay. So what do we do is we just click on, when we clicked on profit, it automatically gets added to the values area. Okay. Now, once you've got it to the values area, you have started your analysis, and now you want to see to break down this data. So you can see there's a number that appears over here, which gives you the profit that's available, right? Now, in order to get the next analysis or the next step in the analysis, you will simply click on state. The moment you click on state, you can see that the number that you were looking at, that was about $534,000, is now broken down by the different states, right? So once you break this down by the different states, you are now going to be able to identify which state has got the maximum sales. Now, obviously, here you don't have too many states, so it's not difficult to find out which state has got the maximum sales. But despite that, you still feel you want to kind of identify which state has got maximum sales easily. You could simply select this data, that's the profitable data, profit data, I'm sorry, and then go to the home tab, and you can use the interesting feature called as conditional formatting. So click this drop down and use the option color scales, and let's use a green to red color scale. So basically, whenever you have high values, it will be in dark green, and when you have low values, it will be in light red. So accordingly, which state gives you the maximum sales and which state gives you the minimum profit? Sorry, which state is giving you the maximum profit and which state is giving you the minimum profit? So quickly, I want that in the chat. Can everyone put it in the chat, please? Yes. Which is the state with the maximum profit and which is the state with the minimum profit? Give me the minimum and maximum values, please. Guys, please make it interactive and please put your answers in the chat. Okay, great. Thanks, Honey Jane. The answer is Georgia with the maximum sales, and the minimum sales is North Carolina. Perfect. That's the right answer. Bang on target. Now, once we've got this analysis, the next thing that we can do is maybe we could see what is the total profit in terms of percentage. Let's say this is 100%. Out of the 100%, how much percentage comes from each of the states? So ideally, what you would do to get the percentage, you would take every single state's profit and you would divide it by the overall profit. So you would do something very similar to this. You start with an equal to sign, and then you will say, pick up the state profit from Alabama, and then you put a division symbol, and then you select this and then press enter. So you say, okay, this is 13.1% or 13.18% or 19%, whatever. Now, the challenge with this thing is that I will have to keep doing it every time, and I will have to keep updating this whenever I have more data or less data available in my data set. So let's show you how to do it using an automated method and within the pivot table itself without doing any calculation. So the best way of doing that is you can right click on the value, any one of these values. Now, please note, whatever you do with respect to any of these numbers, they are all part of the entire field. So please note that in this case, when I select any one of this cell and I right click, I'm referring to the entire column called as profit. So I right click and then I say I want to use the option called as show values as and percentage of grand total. Now this is what you get wherein you see the entire data being populated or totaled up to 100%. And you can see Georgia is contributing 46.84%. Now the best part about using this particular technique is that if I use any other field as part of my pivot table, it is not going to impact the calculations. The calculation will still be intact and it will still be updated automatically. Let me show you with an example. So let's say in this, I want to see what is the total profit that comes in based on the different product lines. So if I click on product line, since it's non-numerical, by default, it will go to the rows area. And if there's already a field in the rows area, it will be nested within that rows area. Now, if you see very beautifully what it does is, it shows you accessories for Alabama is about 1.05%. Accessories is lower in most of the states. And you can see as a percentage of the total sales. Now, please note, this accessories, consumables and products are within the state calculations. Okay, for example, out of the 13.19%, 1.05% of the profit comes from accessories in Alabama. Remember, creating a report is important, but not as important as interpreting the report. So this is how you normally read it. Now, the best part is whenever you click on any of these non-numerical fields, it automatically goes to the rows area. Okay. But if you want to utilize the filters and the columns area as well, I'll show you how it actually works. So let me drag the product line to the columns area, and you will see that it now shows you that overall accessories is relatively very low, consumables is doing decent enough, and product is doing far better. But consumables is giving you the maximum profit in Georgia. So this is how it works. Now, if you want to remove the conditional formatting, select all the cells and just click the drop down and say you want to remove the rules. So you can say clear rules from entire sheet. That means now we're left with only the actual data and then we're looking at the numbers. Now you can see in Georgia, 46.84% is your grand total in terms of the 3 months. But on the other hand, when you're actually looking at the percentage contribution towards the overall scenario, you can see that every value here in this is indicative of the fact that this much percentage of the sales came from the sale of, came from profit came from the profit of sale through consumables and Florida. So in this way, you can very easily work with your data and get the calculations or get the pivot table ready for yourself. Okay, so I hope everyone's enjoying the session. Very quickly, give me a quick yes in the chat or no in the chat. And please give me a quick feedback in terms of a one word or one line feedback in terms of how the session is going on so far. I hope you all are understanding the session, everyone. Great. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you're enjoying the session, give me a quick thumbs up or maybe give me a heart into the chat box or in the chat. That would really help. That is going to make the entire session even more interesting, and that will give me a better feel when it comes to helping. Okay, great. So now what we do is, since we've got the percentage grand total, I can go back and revert to it by right clicking and say show values as and click on no calculation. So this time we are now looking at the original data. Please note that this calculation, when you change it to a percentage, it remains as long as you have not changed it back to the original data. Okay, but you can actually go back and add new pivots if you want to add, or new data if you want to add. Now let's talk about the next analysis where, let's say for example, I want to see a quick heat map in terms of the sales happening and which months have been, like the good months for the company and the bad months for the company in terms of sales that's happening or profit that's being generated. Which are the more profitable months and which are not the more profitable months. Now what I do is, because I've got my product line into the columns, I'll just pull it out from here. And now you would be wondering, where is the month column. So can you see, do I have a month column in the table here in the report fields? Do I have a month column here? Okay, Shanmukh, to change this into percentage, you just right click and you go to show values as and percentage of grand total. Okay, that's where you need to work with. Yeah, so you can see, I think we do not have any field that gives me the month data. So I have got a date column, which is in a date field. I can drag that field into the columns area. Now, when I do that, you can see that it's broken down by Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, and you can see it's rolled up at that level. Let me just zoom out for you a little at 100%. So this is what we see in this particular situation, right? Now, what I'm going to do is, you can see I've got more dates in the, or more months and lesser number of states. So let me just swap this. So first and foremost, I do not want days and I do not want the date. Now you can see, because I don't have any years data, like multiple years data is not there. So you can see it gives me months. So what I do here is I move the state to the columns area and I move the months to the rows area. Now, once I've done this, I will go to the pivot table design tab and the report layout tab. So by default, it says it's a compact form. I will just change it to an outline form. Now, what does this outline form help you to do? It basically gives you the name of the column. But if I actually look at it in compact form, it just says column labels and row labels. So I'll just change this to show in a compact form. Sorry, in a outline form. Now, once I've done this, I want to see which months are doing well in terms of profit and which months are not doing well in terms of profit, right? So what I do is I select this entire data and then I go to the home tab and I use the conditional formatting. I will use color scales, but this time around I will use a white, red, white, or maybe I can use a, sorry, higher the value, right? So let's use a white green color scale, wherein higher the values, I see a maybe a greener color. Okay, so if I take this green color here, you can say green white scale. I'll just take this, and before I move ahead, obviously because these grand totals are pretty big, I will just switch them off by going to the design tab and switching off the grand totals for rows and columns. Now you can see very clearly that Georgia happens to have the maximum revenue, or basically doing pretty well. Now, to make this even more clearly, visible, I will update this conditional formatting rule that I have created. So I select this data, or maybe I could just keep this, keep the cell in any one of, keep my cursor in any one of the cells. Go to the drop down for conditional formatting and click on manage rules. Now, when I click on manage rules, you can see there's a graded color scale. That means it's moving from one level to another. So I just double click on this. Okay, and then you can see it's a 2-color scale. So I will use a 3-colored scale, wherein the lowest color will be white and the mid color, or the 50 percentile also, I'll change it to white. Okay, and the highest will be green. Now when I click OK and click OK once again, this time you will see that only those that are good enough, okay, they only will be seen. So for example, you can see Georgia is doing pretty well across the board, across all the months, except for Jan, okay. But there are certain months where Florida and South Carolina are also doing good enough. And there's one month where Alabama is doing well. So Alabama is doing well in June. In May, it's Florida and South Carolina. And in October, it's Tennessee. So North Carolina is one particular state that's not doing well across the board, across all the months that are there in this particular data set. Okay, so you like this trick? Okay, I'll explain the date part again, Afza. Let me just show it to you. So for the date part, what I actually did is I used my date column. I dragged the date into the rows area. And when I drag the date into the rows area, okay, you can see you've got month, days, and date. We just remove everything except for month. Now, once you do that, as I told you, that here you can see the values for Georgia, Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, and Tennessee. These have got a slight greenish tint in the numbers. That means somewhere or the other, they've done well in terms of the values that are being generated. Okay, now if you have multiple data points for different years, etc., you can very easily get a conditional formatting, and you can see that these are the insights from your data. Now, when I use the word insights, insight basically means what is the finding from the data. Okay, what are we actually able to identify, and how do we actually go about it, right? Now, let's try to understand whether there is any seasonality in the data. So when you say seasonality, basically for seasonality, you ideally would need uh, multiple years of data to see whether there is any pattern in the data. But unfortunately here, we have only 1 year of data. Okay, but if you actually had more data, then what you could have done is you could have used a seasonality pattern. So let me show you how things work. So I go back, I will just right click on the sheet and I will create a copy of it. Okay, I just click create a copy and then I click on the next tab. Okay, now in this case, what I do is I remove my state. Okay, or else maybe what I could do is okay, I will put in my months back to the columns area, and I will use the product line into the rows, and here I will remove my entire data, and I will just remove the conditional formatting. So select all these cells and then click on the clear rule from select cells. Now, once you've got this, you can go ahead and you can create a pivot chart by clicking on insert. Okay, and then you go to the recommended chart section, or maybe you could just go to a line chart over here. And in the line chart, when I actually look at the data, you can see line with markers. Now, the question here is that I want this to be in the opposite thing. So I move my axis to the legend and I move the legend to the axis. This time around, you can see that there is some sort of a setup where you can see the difference. Now you can see that in the month of May and June, the sale of products are peaking, whereas consumables happens to be a steady rise, or there seems to be a steady rise in consumables, and then there's a drop with respect to the consumables, whereas accessories seems to be a close or a very low phase or low value across all the months of data that we have available, right? So are you understanding this? Okay, now that's a pretty question that's put up here. Sir, I have a doubt. What is the difference between analysis, analyst, and analytics? Okay, so that is more of a very theoretical question, Mohammad Noor, but I'll try to see what I can do with respect to that. So analysis basically is just understanding the data and using basic kind of techniques for analyzing your data, whereas analyst is a person who actually does the analysis for you, and analytics is basically where you are using some statistical methods to apply and move ahead. Okay, so please note that when you are actually studying, you do get these differences in terms of the answers for the three terms in a particular data, or maybe you can get the more clear setup of it. A lot of times these terms are used interchangeably, so that is something that you have to be a little careful about. Okay, Mohammad Noor, I hope I have been able to answer your question. Okay, Apeksha, I think I can do that, but that's something that you will have to speak to at the backend team for Let's Upgrade. Yes, you can. There are a lot of people who do want interview question preparations and stuff, but I think that is not the platform. I mean, this is not the platform right now to discuss about it. Maybe you could put a comment and you could kind of speak to the backend team for your requirement. Harsh, I think this data has already been shared. I've already shared this data with Anam. She has, I think, already shared it with you on the chat. Okay. Or maybe in that you know all-in-one documentation. So just check it out there. Okay, there it will be available. So we have now realized that, okay, this is the pattern in terms of the buying patterns. So you can see that in terms of products, okay, there are three peaks that are being formed. Can you see? So basically, there are three times of the year when the product sales happen, and the main peak is in the month of May. You also see the peak happening in October, and you can see it also happening in March. So basically, these are three periods of the month when you actually see the sales of products increasing. Okay, so you've understood the pattern of the sales in this now. Okay, so we've looked at, the first thing we've looked at is we've tried to understand what is the or which are the months when we are having higher sales using the pattern, or basically the conditional formatting technique that we are actually using. Now, one more important thing that you can actually do is we can go ahead and try to analyze profitability. Now, why is profitability important? Let me explain to you. So what we are actually doing right now is just profit. We are not looking at profitability. So profitability can be done, or you can understand profitability by dividing the profit with the sales value or the revenue value. Revenue and sales are the same thing. So if I divide my profit value for every single transaction with the revenue of that transaction, I will reach a profit margin calculation. But profit margin calculation is not as straightforward as it is in this particular situation. If you have attended the boot camp yesterday, you would have understood why we need to calculate profit margins separately. I'm going to explain that once again to you so that you understand the main crux of it. Okay, so here I'm going to open up the data, and okay, so if you actually look at this here, you can see we've got the quantity, we've got the unit price, the unit cost, the revenue needs to be calculated, cost needs to be calculated, profit and profit margin needs to be calculated. So we've anyways reached up to profit. So we've done a very simple job of multiplying the quantity by the unit price. And then I'm going to multiply my quantity by the cost. And then I'm going to get my profit. So for profit, I will say profit is equal to revenue, which is in I3 minus the cost. Enter. And then I need to get my profit margin, which is nothing but the profit, whatever the profit is gained, and then I divide it by the revenue. So this is where I get 71.65% as the profit margin for the first product. I could select all four of these cells together, and then I could drag it down to get the value for the others as well. So I've already used the conditional formatting here, hence you can see these numbers. Now my question to all of you is, how we get data in the sheet 2. We just select state, products, and months. Okay, I'm showing you. Yeah, here we are selecting the product line, the profit, and the months that is there. Okay, now here, what is the total profit margin? How do I calculate the overall profit margin of the company? How do I calculate the overall profit margin of the company? Anyone? how do you think you can get the overall profit margin of the company? So let me show you. Basically, a lot of people think that if I take a total of this column, it will give me the overall profit margin, but that's not how it works. You need to go ahead and take the total of the profit, and then you need to divide the revenue by it. A lot of people don't know how to work with this very, very simple calculation. Now, the question is, why can I not use the total of my profit margin calculation? So first and foremost, a lot of people struggle with this kind of situations where they are working with aggregated data. Like for example, I'm working with the individual values. Now, in order to find out what was the overall profit margin of the company, I cannot take a total of the individual profit margins. I will have to somehow find out the average profit, or I'll have to find out the profit, total profit divided by the total loss. I mean, sorry, the total revenue. Okay. This way, I will get a value for profit, total profit, and I will get a value for the total revenue. And that will give you the final profit margin calculation, right? So let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and go about with this. Now, here I'm going to take a total by using alt equal to for profit, and then I'm going to use alt equal to for the revenue as well. Now, obviously, there is a calculation that's being done here, so it's just populated it down. If it did not, you could just use Control D to get the total down. So now, currently, the company is making a profit of 46.93% overall in terms of the company, right? So what we do is we go ahead and we are going to utilize the same technique. Now, in the pivot table, if I want to do this kind of a thing, I have to use the pivot table analyze tab, and under that there's something called as fields, items, and sets. Okay, so you click this drop down and you create a calculated field. Now, because we are doing this as at an aggregated level, I will be using the field name, and let's call this field name as profit margin. So we are actually creating a calculation within the pivot table. Now, why are we doing this within the pivot table, and why are we not using it directly as a profit margin column? Because I'm not going to get the right calculation. So here my formula will be a simple profit. Okay, I select profit and then I click insert field, and then I divide this by the revenue, right? So this is where I insert the field and click OK. Now I've got the profit margin here, and these are actually now showing up as dollar formats. So I will have to go to the profit margin, right click on it, and then I will go to the value field settings option. Here I can go to my number format, or I could directly go to number format directly by right clicking and say I want to use number format. So go to number format, change it to a percentage format, and then 2 decimals and click OK. Now once you click OK, you can see that the data has now been set up with the profit margins as well. Now if I want to see the most profitable month, I could just remove this in terms of profit margin. Okay, so I can see this as profit margin. Now, so for example, here in October, it says a division by zero error. Maybe this is where you are actually looking at a negative value. That's why there's a division by zero error that's actually showing up. Okay, maybe there's no value that's there. So this is how we get the errors, and we need to take those into consideration as well. Okay. So I've got my product line, I've got my months, I've got the profit margin as well. Now I can start building a quick small dashboard out of this. So let me just go ahead and try to set up a sheet and start building a dashboard out of this. Okay. I'm currently deleting this, and this also I'm just keeping it as it is. Now I start off by creating one more sheet, and let's call this as DB, which indicates dashboard. I'll just push it to the left, and let's call this as heat map, or maybe we can call this as heat map. Okay. Then I can right click and say move or copy, create a copy, and then I can create a copy after the heat map. This one can be maybe a simple, like a bar chart, or maybe a sales by category, sales by PL, product line. Okay, so I'll just remove my months, and then I can remove the profit. Let's put in revenue, and then I can put in the product line. Okay, and maybe I can also look at the states. Okay, now once I've got this, maybe I can put this here and this one here. I will then go ahead to the insert tab, and I will create a simple 2D column chart. This is what I get out of this. And I normally don't like this field button, so I'll just just uncheck this by going to pivot chart analyze tab and switch this off. And this legend also, I can put it on top. It takes up a lot of space and creates a lot of white space. So let's right click, go to format legend, and let's put it on the top. Okay, so this is there. Now let's add a chart title. So let's click on this plus icon. Let's add a chart title, and let's call this title as revenue by state and product line. Okay, now once this is done, I can just cut this from here, and I can put it on my dashboard. I can cut my, or I can take my entire heat map, cut it from here and paste it here as well. Oh, sorry. Or let's just create this on the copy, paste. Okay, so this is done. Just adjust it. Now this is just an example to show you how I've created two of my charts. Let's just reduce the zoom a little. Now once you've created the two charts, you can actually break these charts down. So if I just add some space on top here, I want a slicer that is going to allow me to see the data broken down by the different types of companies. Okay, so I've got two types of companies. So I go to any one of these, or I can just click on this particular pivot, the heat map, go to the pivot table analyze tab, and then here I can click on insert slicer. Once I insert the slicer, okay, and then I will go to the customer type. I have the customer type, yeah, and click OK. Now this is there available. To make it a little better, I'll just place it on top under the slicer tab. Okay, this is again a contextual tab. It's available when you click the slicer. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to slicer settings, and I will switch off the header and click OK. Not required. Let's just reduce the height a little, and let's change the columns to 2 columns, and let's increase the width. Now the good part is that because I've connected this, or I've created the slicer using this particular heat map or this pivot table, when I click on automotive, you can see it changes, and when I click on financial, you can see it updates also. So it's only impacting this visual. It's not impacting this visual. I wanted to impact all the visuals in the dashboard. So how do I do that? I will first select both of them together by using control and then selecting the second one. Then I select the slicer, go to the slicer button or the slicer tab, and here you've got something called as report connections. Now click on this and select this heat map as well. and the sales by PL as well. Once you've done that, you can just click OK. Now, when you click on financial, you can see everything's updating for financial. It's just showing you Florida and Georgia. And when you click on automotive, it's showing you all the states that are there: Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. One of the state is, I think, missing in this particular case. If I just use both of them, you can see that I've got all the states, and you can clearly make out that Georgia has got the maximum sales for the overall products as well as the, but you can see Alabama and South Carolina, you can see that the sales of product is higher than the consumables. That means there's a scope of more sales of consumables in Alabama because the product sales are also increasing. So on that note, I'm going to stop today's session, okay, because we are done with this, and I hope you had a good time understanding and working with the data and seeing how we actually ended up creating a quick dashboard in Excel using the printer sales data, right? So thank you for attending the session, everyone. We are now done with the session. I hope to see you tomorrow in the session. We will be using the same data set, but we will be using a different technology. We'll be using Power BI for this, for the same data set. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Hope to see you tomorrow.